That night proved every single story you read about sketchy online meetups is absolutely true.
It was a cold, wet Friday evening in late January. The kind of day where the sky stays a dull, heavy gray from sunrise to sunset. I was desperate for a new laptop. My old one finally died, and I was starting my final semester of college the following week. I needed a MacBook Pro for the design software I used, and those things are brutal on a student budget. I was panicking a little, to be honest. That's how I ended up on Facebook Marketplace. I found the perfect listing, a late model MacBook Pro, barely used, listed for about half of retail price. The seller was a guy named Dave. His profile looked normal enough, a few pictures of a dog, a generic local sports team profile photo. There were maybe 3 other people interested, so I knew I had to jump on it fast. The first weird thing was the scheduling. Dave was flaky. We were supposed to meet at a busy Starbucks at 4 p.m. I left my place a little early, had cash on me, and felt ready to get this done. At 3:45 p.m., he texted, "Hey man, huge traffic jam, can we do 5:30? Sorry, bad day." Fine, whatever. I killed time waiting, feeling that nervous energy that comes with buying expensive electronics. At 5:30 p.m., he texted again. "My car broke down right outside my neighborhood. It's totally dead. Can you just swing by my place? It's only 10 minutes from the Starbucks. I'll knock another $50 off for the trouble since you have to drive." Now, this was a huge red flag I should have listened to. Every safety guide tells you, never change the meeting spot, especially from public to private. Never go to someone's house. But I saw the $50 discount. I was running on about 4 hours of sleep, stressed about class, and listening to an aggressively cheerful podcast that was completely distracting me from my instincts. The politeness trap was set. I didn't want to be rude after he'd already apologized twice, and I definitely didn't want to lose the deal just because of a small inconvenience. I told him fine, send the address. The address he sent was in a newer, half-finished subdivision about 45 minutes away in a semi-rural area, all cookie-cutter houses and muddy roads. The neighborhood felt isolated. The GPS cut out twice because cell service was patchy. The sun had completely set by the time I pulled off the main highway and started driving through the confusing maze of half-built homes. My car's outside thermometer read 4 degrees Celsius. It felt colder. The glitch. I pulled up to the address around 6:15 p.m., house number 408. The immediate atmosphere was wrong. I killed the engine. It was silent. It was one of those 2-story houses, but there were no lights on anywhere. Not the porch, not the windows, nothing. Every other house on the street had lights on, toys in the yard and cars in the driveway. This one looked vacant, dead. Even the huge trash bins were missing. The lawn was patchy and overgrown, unlike the freshly sodded yards next door. I put the car in park and texted Dave. "I'm outside 408, silver sedan." I waited. No reply. I felt my stomach tighten. Not fear yet, just deep annoyance. Great, I drove all this way for a no-show. I checked my text again, thinking maybe he gave me the wrong number. A full minute later, the front door of 408 opened. No light spilled out. It was just a black hole. Dave stepped out. He was a big guy, mid-20s maybe, wearing dark sweatpants and a dirty gray hoodie. He didn't look exactly like his profile picture, but people lie online, so I filed it away. What was truly strange, though, was that he didn't bring the computer. He didn't even acknowledge my car. He just stood on the porch and waved me toward the front door, gesturing impatiently for me to come inside. I rolled down my window about an inch. The cold air rushed in. "Hey, Dave, just bring the laptop out here, man. I can check it right through the window." I tried to keep my voice light. He kept his hands shoved in his pockets and walked slowly down the porch stairs toward my car. He stopped right next to my door. His voice was too loud, too cheerful for the setting, and it echoed in the empty darkness. "Nah, man, I gotta show you how the chargers work, and the Wi-Fi here is better for testing the specs. It's too dark out here to look at the screen. Come on in, it'll just take a sec." I felt the first real wave of fear then, that cold, prickly sensation that runs from your lower back right up to the back of your skull. My internal monologue was shouting, why can't he bring a laptop outside? He could turn on the porch light. Why is the house pitch black? I tried desperately to stay calm and rational. "Look, I appreciate it, but I'm really in a hurry. I just need to power it on and check the serial number. You can do that standing right there. I have the cash." I reached into my glove compartment and pulled out the pre-agreed amount of cash, showing him the fat wad of $100 bills. This was supposed to signal trust and seriousness. Dave's eyes locked onto the money. His smile vanished instantly, replaced by something cold and empty. "Listen to me." he said, taking 2 quick, aggressive steps closer, reducing the gap between him and my door. His voice went flat and hard, cutting through the silence. "You need to get out of the car now." My heart slammed against my ribs. This was no longer a negotiation. This was a command. My hands started shaking on the steering wheel. I was boxed in, alone, and holding a ton of cash. My eyes darted around frantically, searching for an exit, a witness, anything. I noticed the garage. It had a cheap, standard white door, and it was open just a foot or so. It was dark inside, but the gap was just big enough. I saw it. Just for a second, in the narrow vertical sliver, I saw the bottom of a pair of dirty, heavy work boots sticking out from behind what looked like a lawnmower. There was a second person. They weren't in the house. They were waiting in the garage. The realization hit me like a physical blow.
Dave lunged for my driver's side door handle. I screamed, a pathetic little yelp of pure terror, and slammed the gear selector down to reverse. I floored the accelerator without looking. My tires spun and instantly grabbed traction on the wet asphalt. The car rocketed backward. Dave screamed something. I couldn't make out the words, and I heard his hand scrape off the window as my car pulled away from him. I wasn't steering. I was just reversing blindly down the narrow gravel-shoulder driveway, my foot mashed to the pedal. Then, the garage door shot open. The guy in the boots, the second person, sprinted out holding something long and dark, I think a tire iron or maybe a piece of wood, and he was running to cut off my escape. He was fast. My back bumper slid hard against the decorative brick mailbox post at the end of the driveway, wrenching the car sideways. The whole back end groaned in protest, metal scraping and twisting violently. I didn't stop. I jammed the transmission into drive without waiting for the car to stop moving, fearing I'd stall. I spun the wheel hard, heard another sickening crunch as my fender kissed the neighbor's curb and roared out of the neighborhood. I watched the rearview mirror as I fishtailed onto the main road. Dave and the other guy were standing at the end of the driveway, just watching. They didn't chase me. They didn't need to. They knew the message had been sent, and they knew I wasn't coming back. The aftermath and chilling validation. I drove straight to the nearest 24-hour gas station, pulled into the brightest spot under the canopy, and called the police. I was shaking so violently, I had to read the address off the pump to the dispatcher. I could barely articulate the words, just babbling about the house and the boots. The police were great. They took my statement about the dark house and the 2 guys. They sent a patrol car out there, but when they arrived, House 408 was completely dark and empty. They found no vehicles, no people, and no sign of forced entry or anything suspicious. It looked like any other vacant for sale house. They treated it as a failed, but serious, attempted robbery, and strongly advised me never to meet anyone from the marketplace in a private area again. I filed the insurance claim. A week later, the insurance company sent an adjuster to my campus apartment to inspect the damage. The rear bumper was totaled and the quarter panel had a deep, ugly scrape down to the primer. The friendly, older adjuster, seeing I was still jumpy about the whole thing, pulled out the police report. He frowned at the address 408. He said, "This is weird." He tapped the paper. "This address has come up a few times lately in our system. Not for this type of damage, but usually it's about stolen vehicles or people getting jumped nearby. But the house itself, our records show it's been foreclosed and sitting empty for over 8 months." I felt the blood drain completely from my face. It hit me why they were so confident and aggressive. They weren't using Dave's house, they were using an empty, abandoned building in a remote area as their base of operations. The house being empty wasn't a glitch. It was the chilling validation that they had orchestrated the entire scenario, guaranteeing there would be no witnesses, no neighbors, and certainly no laptop. They knew exactly how to make a victim feel isolated before the drop. I got away with the damaged car, but I know for a fact, if I had stepped out of that car for even a second, I wouldn't have been so lucky. They didn't want the MacBook. They wanted the cash and whatever else they could take.